"Who will attend to that one over there?" one of the nurses inquired with an unmistakable tone of revulsion. "I'm not sure. I'd rather not get involved," replied another, her face twisting in a gesture of disregard. Raphael stood nearby, feeling a tight knot of distress form in his chest. It was unfathomable to him how his colleagues could display such a blatant lack of empathy towards Eduardo, a fellow human being in desperate need of care, just like any other patient. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. With a heavy sigh and a resolve that set him apart from the indifference surrounding him, Raphael moved towards Eduardo's stretcher. Ignoring the critical glances from his peers, he began his assessment with unwavering determination. "Hang in there, my friend." "Are you all right?" Raphael spoke softly yet confidently as he meticulously adjusted the IV drip and started to tend to Eduardo's wounds. The disapproving murmurs of discontent among the other patients and hospital staff reverberated around him. Some cast sneering looks at Eduardo, while others exchanged whispers of disdain, questioning why Raphael would squander his time on a filthy, odoriferous vagabond. Yet Raphael remained undeterred, driven by a steadfast commitment to offer Eduardo the care and dignity he was entitled to, irrespective of his circumstances. "Why are we expending resources on him? He doesn't even seem to be interested in improving," one nurse remarked with a scornful gaze directed at Raphael. "I can't fathom why Raphael is wasting his time with people like this. They'll only cause problems again once they leave." A patient muttered to another in a hushed but audible tone, clearly intended for Raphael to overhear. Despite the harsh and unforgiving words that echoed around them, Raphael continued his compassionate work, focusing entirely on providing Eduardo with the utmost care. He understood that he might not be able to shift everyone's perspectives, but he was resolute in his mission to make a tangible difference in the life of this man who had endured so much unjust treatment. Raphael was renowned in the hospital for his unwavering dedication and profound empathy. He was known for treating every patient with the highest degree of respect and care, irrespective of their background or circumstances. That day, the hospital, especially the emergency room, was a whirlwind of activity, patients and their families bustling anxiously, doctors and nurses darting back and forth. Amid this frenetic chaos, Raphael maintained a serene composure, attending to each case with his characteristic patience and professionalism. He understood that his calm demeanor was crucial for delivering the best possible care during such turbulent times. Little did Raphael know that this encounter with the beggar would leave an indelible mark on his life. Eduardo, a destitute individual, had been struck by a vehicle before the paramedics transported him to the hospital. The strong stench emanating from him and his disheveled appearance drew the attention of everyone present. Eduardo was in a pitiful state. His clothes were tattered, his body was emaciated, and he seemed like a mere wisp of a person. The sight evoked disgust and disdain from other staff members and patients alike. Some turned away, holding their noses and muttering unpleasant remarks, their actions a stark contrast to the compassion Raphael was determined to provide. With each deliberate and measured movement, Raphael approached his task with utmost care. He was acutely aware of Eduardo's precarious state and the urgent need for meticulous treatment. Although Eduardo appeared to be unconscious, Raphael spoke to him softly, convinced that even the gentlest of words might reach through the veil of his unresponsive state. "Every life matters profoundly. I can't abandon anyone in need." Raphael reminded himself, finding solace in the very principles that had guided him into the nursing profession. As Raphael worked, his mind wandered to the untold story behind Eduardo's plight. What chain of events had led this man to a life of destitution? What struggles and misfortunes had he faced? Raphael was keenly aware that every individual carried a narrative filled with hardship and sorrow. Driven by a deep-seated empathy, Raphael was determined to uncover Eduardo's story, assist him in his recovery, and, if fate allowed, help him forge a path toward a more hopeful future. Throughout the day, Raphael dedicated himself to Eduardo's care with unwavering focus, monitoring vital signs, meticulously changing bandages, and ensuring the administration of essential medications. Gradually, Eduardo began to exhibit signs of improvement. His eyes fluttered open momentarily, and he uttered a faint, indecipherable murmur. Raphael, steadfast and compassionate, remained by his side, gently holding his hand and offering soothing words of encouragement. "You're making progress, Eduardo. We're going to get through this together, I promise," Raphael said, his voice imbued with warmth and optimism. By the end of his shift, Raphael was physically drained, but a profound sense of fulfillment washed over him. He felt a deep satisfaction in knowing that his efforts had made a tangible difference in someone's life. As he prepared to leave the hospital, Raphael's thoughts turned to ways he could further assist Eduardo. He was resolute in his intention to not only address Eduardo's physical wounds, but also to alleviate the emotional scars he bore. The ensuing days presented new hurdles. Eduardo remained hospitalized, but the prevailing attitudes among the staff remained unchanged. Some suggested transferring Eduardo to a shelter, yet Raphael was adamant that he needed to stay until he was fully recovered. "He's not ready to leave. He still requires intensive care," Raphael argued passionately with his supervisor. "We're constrained by our resources. We need to prioritize beds for other patients," the supervisor responded, clearly frustrated. However, Raphael refused to relent, pressing on with, "What fate awaits him if we discharge him now?" The supervisor hesitated, conflicted by Raphael's plea, and reluctantly agreed to extend Eduardo's stay for a few more days. Seizing this opportunity, Raphael poured his heart into providing Eduardo with the best possible care. He engaged him in conversation, gently encouraged him to share his past, and offered a level of support that Eduardo had never before experienced. As days passed, Eduardo began to open up, gradually revealing fragments of his life story that illuminated the chain of events that had led him to his current plight. One day, Eduardo's voice emerged from the shadows of his despair, fragile and quivering. "I used to have a good life, family, friends. Everything was set," he confided, his words laden with deep-seated sorrow. But it all came crashing down. Raphael, sensitive to Eduardo's vulnerable state, responded gently, "What happened?" Eduardo's tears traced grimy paths down his cheeks as he continued, "Mental health struggles, alcoholism. I lost it all. I lost it all. I left because I didn't want to burden my family any further." The raw pain in Eduardo's voice tightened a knot in Raphael's throat. He was acutely aware of the profound struggles faced by many like Eduardo, who grappled with immense challenges often exacerbated by a lack of support. This revelation only strengthened Raphael's resolve to help Eduardo reclaim a semblance of a dignified life. In the bustling environment of the hospital, Eduardo's presence was often overlooked. His disheveled appearance elicited visible discomfort from both patients and staff alike. The contempt he faced was palpable, manifesting in disdainful glances and whispered criticisms that echoed through the hallways. Eduardo, still frail and emotionally fragile, felt the crushing weight of their judgment, making his journey to recovery even more arduous. Despite this, Raphael's commitment to Eduardo remained unshakable. He refused to let the negativity of others sway him, steadfastly upholding his promise of dignity and respect. "Why are you so invested in him?" a patient asked, bewildered by Raphael's unwavering dedication to Eduardo. "Because he deserves a second chance, just like anyone else," Raphael replied, his voice firm with conviction. Yet, his answer did little to sway the opinions of many. The surface-level judgments persisted, as some continued to disparage Eduardo without attempting to understand his deeper struggles. One of the nurses, who had been openly disdainful since Eduardo's arrival, commented loud enough for Raphael to overhear, "We have so many patients who need help. I don't see why we're wasting time on a case like his." A surge of anger welled up within Raphael, but he took a deep breath, choosing composure over confrontation. He knew that arguing would not change perceptions. Instead, he channeled his energy into caring for Eduardo with the same meticulous attention he afforded every patient. Raphael firmly believed that actions could convey his message more effectively than words. Eduardo noticed Raphael's steadfast dedication amidst the apathy of others. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Eduardo expressed both his gratitude and the profound sadness that lingered in his heart. Eduardo's voice, tinged with doubt and weakness, barely rose above a whisper. "I don't deserve this, Raphael. Why are you doing all this for me?" His words carried a deep sense of unworthiness, and Raphael's heart ached at the sight of his struggle. Adjusting Eduardo's pillow with a tender touch, Raphael replied, "Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, Eduardo. What matters isn't what happened in the past, it's what we choose to do now." Days stretched on with a slow, relentless rhythm. Though Eduardo's demeanor remained largely unchanged, signs of improvement began to surface. His wounds were mending gradually, and he was slowly regaining strength. Raphael remained a steadfast presence by his side, a beacon of encouragement and hope amidst the uncertainty. As Eduardo's condition began to stabilize, the initial contempt from other patients started to wane. They began to observe the positive changes in Eduardo and the unwavering dedication Raphael demonstrated. "Maybe you're right, Raphael. Perhaps everyone does deserve a second chance," admitted one patient who had previously questioned Raphael's commitment. Raphael, with a small, encouraging smile, replied, "It's not easy, but it's worth every effort." Despite Eduardo's gradual improvement, he was still far from being fully recovered. Raphael continued to provide meticulous care, ensuring that Eduardo's wounds were cleaned properly and that he adhered to his medication regimen. However, one day Raphael was summoned to the head nurse's office, and a sense of foreboding settled in his chest. "Raphael, we need to free up Eduardo's bed. He's scheduled for discharge," the head nurse stated bluntly. The shock hit Raphael like a physical blow. He knew Eduardo was not prepared to leave. His condition still required ongoing care. "Eduardo isn't ready to be discharged," Raphael responded, his voice steady but filled with concern. The head nurse's expression softened slightly, but her resolve remained firm. "I understand your concern, Raphael, but we're stretched thin. We have numerous patients who need immediate care," she explained. A tight knot of anxiety formed in Raphael's stomach. He was acutely aware that Eduardo had nowhere to go and was still too frail to fend for himself. Desperate, Raphael tried to make one final plea. "If we discharge him now, he might not survive. He's still extremely weak," he said, his voice trembling with worry. The head nurse shook her head, acknowledging the gravity of the situation but bound by the hospital's constraints. "The decision is final, Raphael. Do everything you can to support him, but he has to leave by tomorrow," she said, closing the conversation with a note of finality. Raphael left the office with a heavy heart, feeling the weight of the impending discharge bearing down on him. The thought of Eduardo being cast out into the uncertainty of the world, still so vulnerable, filled him with profound sorrow. He resolved to make the most of the remaining time, ensuring that Eduardo received every bit of support and care he could provide before his departure. Raphael trudged back to Eduardo's room, his mind swirling with frustration and helplessness. The reality of Eduardo's imminent discharge weighed heavily on him, and he struggled to find a way to resolve the dire situation. As he entered the room, he saw Eduardo sitting on the edge of his bed, gazing blankly out of the window, lost in a sea of uncertainty and fear. With a deep, steadying breath, Raphael approached Eduardo and sat beside him, his heart heavy with compassion. "Eduardo, I need to talk to you about something important." "They're planning to discharge you tomorrow," Raphael said gently. Eduardo's head turned slowly, his eyes reflecting a mix of terror and sadness that pierced Raphael's soul. "But where will I go, Raphael? I have no place to turn, and I'm so afraid." Eduardo's voice trembled. tears brimming at the corners of his eyes. Raphael felt an intense pang of empathy. He knew Eduardo had no family or friends to rely on, and his recovery was still far from complete. The thought of Eduardo facing the world alone in his fragile state was unbearable. With a firm resolve, Raphael spoke with unwavering determination. "I promise you, Eduardo, I will do everything within my power to help you. We'll find a shelter or someplace where you can stay until you're fully healed." The night that followed was one of restless energy and relentless effort for Raphael. He reached out to numerous local shelters and organizations, fighting against the clock to secure a haven for Eduardo. After considerable persistence and coordination, Raphael managed to secure a place that could accommodate Eduardo, although it required a significant amount of effort to arrange. As dawn broke, Raphael meticulously prepared Eduardo for discharge. He ensured that Eduardo had all the necessary belongings and information for his new temporary home. With a reassuring smile and a supportive hand, Raphael oversaw Eduardo's transfer to the shelter, ensuring that the transition was as smooth and dignified as possible. In the weeks that followed, Raphael maintained a regular presence in Eduardo's life. He visited the shelter frequently, offering not only moral support but also assisting Eduardo with paperwork and medical appointments. Eduardo's progress was gradual but promising. He began to rebuild his life step by step, securing a part-time job and engaging in counseling sessions to confront and overcome his past struggles. Raphael's unwavering support and encouragement played a crucial role in Eduardo's recovery journey. Despite the challenges, Eduardo's resilience and Raphael's dedication combined to foster a sense of hope and renewal. Raphael's actions exemplified the profound impact that compassion and perseverance could have, transforming Eduardo's path from despair to a hopeful future. Over time, Eduardo underwent a profound transformation. From a state of brokenness and desperation, he emerged as someone brimming with hope and purpose. His journey of recovery and renewal became a beacon of inspiration for many, including Raphael's colleagues who had once dismissed him with disdain. Raphael's unwavering dedication and boundless compassion had a monumental impact on Eduardo's life, demonstrating that every individual, regardless of their past, deserves a second chance and the opportunity to rebuild. Eduardo never forgot the kindness Raphael extended to him during his darkest days. The road to recovery was fraught with challenges and setbacks, but Eduardo's spirit remained resilient. With Raphael's steadfast support, he gradually pieced his life back together, each step forward a testament to his enduring hope and determination. As Eduardo continued to make strides in his new life, he found himself confronting painful memories and unresolved emotions from his past. The conversation took a more personal turn when Eduardo recounted the impact of his estrangement from his father, Armando. During this period, Eduardo experienced a mental breakdown, overwhelmed by the pressures and isolation of his life. He had become so engrossed in his work that he failed to notice the turmoil brewing under his roof. Eduardo's sudden disappearance one night left Armando grappling with the weight of his absence, plagued by the guilt of not being there when his son needed him most. Armando's voice trembled as he shared his regret. "I needed you the most," he said, his words heavy with the pain of missed opportunities and failed responsibilities. Eduardo's gaze was a storm of anguish and fury as he finally met his father's eyes. "Why now, Dad? Where were you when I was fighting to survive on the streets?" Alone and desperate, Eduardo's voice was laden with bitterness and sorrow. "I was left to confront my pain on my own. I didn't know how to manage my struggles, and I ended up lost and homeless. I was adrift, and even after I started to heal, I didn't want to return. You were always preoccupied with work. You put money and business before everything else. I remember calling you, trying to share my life with you, and you'd brush me off with excuses about meetings or trips," Eduardo said, tears streaming down his face as the emotional weight of his past bore down on him. Armando's eyes closed in a moment of deep, soul-crushing regret. Each of Eduardo's words felt like a piercing reminder of his failures. "I made terrible mistakes, Eduardo. I searched for you relentlessly, as if looking for a needle in a haystack. I hired private investigators and alerted the police, but it seemed you had vanished. I never stopped trying to find you. I was desperate to make things right," Armando said, his voice choked with emotion and remorse. The conversation laid bare the raw pain and fractured relationship between father and son. Eduardo's struggles and the scars of abandonment were now openly shared, creating a space for healing and understanding. As they confronted their shared past, both Eduardo and Armando grappled with their emotions, hoping for reconciliation and a chance to mend the broken bonds between them. Armando's heartfelt plea and his attempt to make amends marked a pivotal moment for both father and son. As Armando knelt before Eduardo, the gravity of his regret and desire for redemption was palpable. His words were laden with sincerity, each one reflecting his deep remorse and longing to rectify his past mistakes. The emotional intensity of the moment was almost tangible, and Rafael, observing from the sidelines, understood the critical nature of this encounter for Eduardo and Armando's future. Eduardo's anger and hurt were palpable as he voiced his frustrations. His words, forged from years of unaddressed pain and disillusionment, struck at the core of Armando's failures as a father. Despite the harshness, Eduardo's outburst was a cry for acknowledgement and understanding, reflecting his need for validation and reconciliation. Armando, feeling the sting of Eduardo's accusations, recognized the truth in his son's words. He had prioritized his career and personal ambitions over his family's emotional needs, a realization that now weighed heavily on him. His response, though defensive, was tempered with a genuine desire to make amends and prove that he could be the father Eduardo had always needed. Seeing the vulnerability in Armando's eyes, Eduardo felt a shift. The raw honesty of his father's regret opened a small window for potential healing. Although still deeply hurt, Eduardo acknowledged the possibility of forgiveness and the chance to rebuild their fractured relationship. Rafael's supportive presence provided an encouraging backdrop for Eduardo as he navigated this complex emotional landscape. Eduardo's decision to give his father a chance, albeit tentative, was a step toward mending their relationship. His willingness to consider reconciliation was a testament to his desire for closure and healing. Armando's response, a mixture of relief and continued remorse, reflected his understanding that earning back his son's trust would be a long and challenging journey. As Armando took Eduardo's hand, the gesture symbolized a fragile but hopeful beginning. Both father and son faced the daunting task of rebuilding their relationship, with the road ahead likely filled with emotional hurdles and difficult conversations. Rafael, having witnessed their emotional exchange, remained a silent yet supportive observer, hopeful that this step marked the start of a new chapter for Eduardo and Armando. In the days that followed, the process of reconciliation continued slowly. Eduardo and Armando began to navigate their new dynamic, with Rafael's support serving as a bridge to healing. The path to rebuilding trust was fraught with challenges, but the willingness of both parties to confront their past and work toward a better future offered a glimmer of hope. Rafael was deeply touched by Eduardo's words. It was clear that the bond between him and Eduardo had grown beyond the professional care he had initially provided. Rafael had become a beacon of hope and support during Eduardo's darkest times, and Eduardo's request to continue living with him was a testament to the trust and gratitude he felt. "Of course, Eduardo," Rafael said, his voice choked with emotion. "You can stay with me as long as you need. We'll take things one step at a time." Eduardo's decision to live with Rafael for the time being was a practical step toward stability and continued recovery. It also offered Eduardo a sense of safety and support while he navigated the complexities of rebuilding his life and relationship with his father. Raphael was ready to help him through this transition, understanding that Eduardo's journey toward healing and self-discovery was just beginning. Armando, observing the deep bond between Raphael and Eduardo, felt a profound sense of gratitude toward Raphael. He knew that without Raphael's unwavering support, the process of mending his relationship with Eduardo might have been much more challenging. Armando took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and hope. He knew there was still much work to be done, but seeing Eduardo and Raphael together gave him renewed optimism. The apartment fell into a quieter, more reflective atmosphere as the initial intensity of the moment settled. Eduardo, Armando, and Raphael shared a moment of quiet understanding, each processing the weight of the recent events and the hopeful potential for the future. Raphael decided to take a step forward in their healing journey by planning some activities to help Eduardo and Armando reconnect and build new memories together. He knew that time, patience, and continued support would be essential for Eduardo's full recovery and the rebuilding of the father-son relationship. As Eduardo prepared to move in with Raphael, there was a sense of cautious optimism in the air. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but Raphael's compassion, Armando's commitment, and Eduardo's determination provided a strong foundation for moving forward. The experience had brought them closer, and while it was just the beginning of a long journey, the strength of their connections and the support they offered each other were promising signs of positive change. The unexpected visit from Mr. Salazar brought a new wave of emotions into the room. Raphael's eyes widened in surprise, and Eduardo looked up with a mixture of curiosity and cautious optimism. Mr. Salazar's presence was a reminder of the complexities of their situation and the broader impact of their struggle. Raphael invited Mr. Salazar to sit, his mind racing to process the sudden turn of events. Eduardo and Armando watched with a mix of anticipation and relief. Mr. Salazar cleared his throat before continuing. I realize now that I didn't fully grasp the gravity of Eduardo's situation. Seeing the commitment and care Raphael has shown, and understanding how crucial it is for Eduardo to have the right support, I've reconsidered my stance, Mr. Salazar said, his voice steady but apologetic. Eduardo, still processing Mr. Salazar's words, took a deep breath. Thank you, Mr. Salazar. It means a lot to know that you understand the importance of this support. I appreciate your willingness to reconsider. Mr. Salazar nodded. I've been in touch with the hospital administration, and I've made arrangements to extend Eduardo's stay here. It's clear that he needs more time to recover, and I want to ensure he gets it without the added stress of displacement. Raphael felt a wave of relief wash over him. Thank you, Mr. Salazar. This means more than you know. Eduardo needs this time to heal, and your support is invaluable. Mr. Salazar offered a small, understanding smile. I'm glad we could resolve this. I hope things will improve for Eduardo and everyone involved. With that, Mr. Salazar stood to leave, his demeanor less tense than when he arrived. As he walked to the door, he paused and looked back at the group. If there's anything else I can do, please let me know. I'm here to help. After Mr. Salazar left, Raphael, Eduardo, and Armando were left in a moment of profound reflection. The atmosphere was lighter now, and a sense of hope seemed to settle over them. Eduardo turned to Raphael and Armando, a grateful smile on his face. I feel like things are starting to fall into place. With your support and Mr. Salazar's understanding, I think we can make it through this. Armando placed a reassuring hand on Eduardo's shoulder. We'll work through this together, Eduardo, one step at a time. Raphael, looking at both Eduardo and Armando, felt a renewed sense of purpose. We have a lot to look forward to. Let's focus on moving forward, supporting each other, and making the most of this new beginning. The three of them embraced the moment, knowing that while the path ahead would still be challenging, they now had a stronger foundation of support and understanding to guide them. The unexpected visit from Mr. Salazar provided a crucial turning point, allowing them to focus on healing and rebuilding their lives. Eduardo's confrontation with Mr. Salazar had indeed left a mark on everyone involved. As Mr. Salazar's footsteps faded away, the tension in the room gradually eased, though the emotional impact of the encounter lingered. Eduardo, sitting back down with a heavy heart, still grappled with his feelings of betrayal and frustration. Armando, sensing the depth of Eduardo's turmoil, approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Eduardo, I know it's hard to trust after everything that's happened," and Mr. Salazar's visit just added to the pain. "But remember, you're not alone in this. We're here for you, and we'll get through it together." Eduardo looked up at his father, his eyes reflecting a mix of anger and vulnerability. "I just feel like everything is so unfair. I was cast aside when I was at my lowest, and now it's like people are only showing up because they see a potential benefit." Rafael, who had been quietly observing the exchange, stepped in with a comforting presence. "It's understandable to feel that way, Eduardo. But what's important now is focusing on your recovery and the support you have. We'll work through this together and find a way to move forward." As the night grew quieter, the three of them found solace in each other's company. Rafael made sure Eduardo was comfortable, and Armando helped by preparing a simple meal to ensure Eduardo had the nourishment he needed. They talked about lighter topics, shared stories from their past, and tried to create a sense of normalcy amidst the emotional upheaval. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the apartment windows, there was a new resolve among them. Eduardo was determined to focus on his recovery, despite the lingering bitterness from the previous night's events. Armando was committed to rebuilding his relationship with Eduardo and proving his dedication to being a present and supportive father. Rafael continued to be a steady source of support, helping Eduardo with his daily needs and encouraging him to take small steps toward regaining his strength. The atmosphere in the apartment slowly began to shift from one of tension to one of hope and determination. Eduardo, with Rafael and Armando by his side, began to embrace the journey ahead. He knew it would be a long road, filled with both challenges and opportunities for growth, but he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The emotional scars from the past would take time to heal, but with the support of those who cared for him, Eduardo felt a glimmer of hope for a brighter future. Together, the three of them faced the uncertainty of the future with a sense of unity and resilience, ready to navigate the path of healing and reconciliation that lay ahead. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey with Eduardo, Rafael, and Armando. Through their experiences, we've witnessed the power of compassion, the importance of forgiveness, and the strength it takes to rebuild relationships and recover from hardship. Each of them has faced tremendous challenges, and their stories remind us of the profound impact that support and understanding can have on our lives. As we conclude today's video, we'd love to hear from you. What is one key lesson you've learned from Eduardo and Armando's story? How do you plan to apply this lesson in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video meaningful, please leave your comments, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Your support helps us continue to bring valuable stories and insights to our community. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.